Iron Man is one of the most iconic characters in the MCU. That comes as no surprise considering that his movie was the one that had started it all. Iron Man is an interesting character, but as is the case with genius billionaire playboys, the man behind the suit is often the one fans are most interested in. And boy does Tony Stark fit into that list. Portrayed by the very talented and equally eccentric Robert Downey Jr., Stark brings a completely new dimension to the superhero genre that is equal parts somber as the Bruce Waynes, but also slightly uplifting, hopeful and overly witty like Peter Parker. He strikes the ideal balance between the extremes and gives fans the ideal dichotomy that should exist to provide a compelling story and much needed comic relief. Let's begin with a short origin story for the character. Iron Man was a character first conceived by the legendary comic book writer Stan Lee. He actually created the character as a trial to see whether fans would respond favorably to a character that had a very exuberant lifestyle. But despite his ambivalence, fans responded well to the character and began asking for more. And in that case, Stan pushed over the work of writing and designing to another team. From there, we get the first real look at the character. Unlike many other superheroes, Tony Stark was a scientist and an entrepreneur well before he was an established superhero. That part of him came about during the Vietnam War when he was aiding the American government develop weapons against the native guerrillas. He was caught in a booby trap and was captured by the evil Wong Chu. Wong had cut a deal with Stark that developing weapons for the resistance would lead to his freedom. With a piece of shrapnel that was inching closer to his heart and an expected double cross, Stark improvised first by building a magnetic device that would keep the shrapnel away from his heart, and then secondly forming the first variation of his Iron Man suit, which he used to escape his captors. This was, of course, the Iron Man Mark I suit, and the classic red and yellow suit that we have come to know and love would appear later as the Mark II variations of the suit. His origin story has been refined, but no drastic changes have been made, except those regarding modern technology. You see, Tony's real superpower comes from his mind and his money that he uses to constantly improve his suits and create new ones for special purposes. He also used the Stark fortune to design and develop upgrades that could assist him in the field. He usually centered the suit around the magnetic device that he kept planted near his chest to protect his heart, and this became known as the arc reactor. His ingenuity would later lead to becoming one of the founding members of the Avengers. Teaming up with Thor, the Hulk, and Captain America, he would mastermind the plan that would eventually take down the Norse god of deceit. Loki had gotten the power of the Tesseract and used it to sway the mind of anyone that came under its influence. He was defeated by the joint efforts of the nascent team, and the small band of heroes eventually became known as the Avengers. With Marvel Comics so replete with fascinating characters, why would their directors choose to start off their series with what is generally considered to be a B-grade character? There might have been more than one reason for this, but the crux of it goes something like this. The world we see in the 2008 Iron Man film is heavily grounded on the basis of reality, and the only thing that seems out of place is the fact that a man builds a metallic robot in a cave and eventually turns into an international vigilante. He then also faces an opponent who also has a metallic suit of armor and is also a vigilante. These ideas, though very unrealistic, are just within the grasp of humans to understand. This provided the necessary framework for Marvel to continue building the franchise from the ground up, to include characters such as mercenaries, monsters, and even literal gods. When put in direct comparison with each other, Tony Stark is worth more than his DC counterpart Bruce Wayne by a substantial lead. Also, both of them have had their parents killed. Billionaire problems. His mother was named Maria though, not Martha. Sorry Bruce, guess you guys can't be friends. Another interesting piece of trivia here is that in 1981, when Robert Downey was just 16 years old, he had received a one-day suspension from his school for taking a comic book from a classmate and calling him a nerd before ripping the comic to pieces. The comic was none other than an issue of Invincible Iron Man. Could this be a premonition for the young actor? Well, maybe Stan Lee himself has mentioned that Robert Downey Jr. was born to play Iron Man, with the actor himself having a strong sense of connection with the character. It's not just the intuition of a few good casting directors, though. If you were to ask the general public the same question, they would jump to the side of RDJ. How do I know this? He has taken away 3 People's Choice Awards just for playing Tony Stark. Talk about destiny. For some of these reasons, Iron Man has been the character that fans have come to love and respect over the course of his tenure on the big screen, which sadly culminated with his sacrifice at the end of Endgame. But the character and the role it played still influence the creation of shows and movies alike, as Marvel progresses into the 4th stage of production. Iron Man, the quintessential superhero, will always hold a place in our hearts. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. And for more content like this, subscribe to the channel.